In this video, we'll discuss the top 3 things that buyers should include in their heads of terms based on my experience in acting for numerous buyers in business acquisitions. Buyers, if acting strategically, have a massive advantage when entering into heads of terms, as it is business practice for the buyer in a business acquisition to draft the heads of terms. It is a unique opportunity for the buyer to stack the deck in their favor. If you're new, I'm Malcolm Zoppi, an English qualified solicitor and the managing director of Gaffney Zoppi, my law firm. And my goal on YouTube is to make business law easy for UK entrepreneurs like you. Great, now before we discuss the top 3 things to include, let's actually quickly define what heads of terms are. So heads of terms are typically a fairly short document. They can also be referred to as a letter of intent. And typically they include 3 main things. Number 1, what is the intended purchase price for that business? Number 2, how is the buyer looking to acquire that business? For example, are you buying it as a share purchase or as an asset purchase? And thirdly, who is the buyer actually? Is it you as an individual? Are you going to be setting up a special purpose vehicle? Or are you buying that other business through your existing business? So in summary, heads of terms are a document that the buyer sends to the seller outlining how they intend on buying that business. Great, now let's jump straight into what you should include in your heads of terms, starting with exclusivity. Now, some buyers want to put exclusivity in a separate exclusivity agreement. I don't feel that is particularly necessary, but the concept is the same. You want to be the sole buyer who is in talks with the seller regarding the sale and purchase of that business. Now, the period of exclusivity is very important. You should not have a period that is less than 3 months, and ideally you would have it longer than 6 months. There are a few reasons why exclusivity is a great thing to include in your heads of terms, including the fact that you won't have competition from other potential buyers. Secondly, the seller is more incentivized to actually sell the business to you. And thirdly, you minimize the risk of another buyer coming in, buying the business from under you, and you having wasted money on legal fees that now are unnecessary. Great, let's move on to the second main thing that you want to include, which is making the purchase price subject to due diligence and a legally binding sale and purchase agreement. So for example, you might have offered to buy the business at £500,000, but that offer isn't a binding offer because first you need to conduct due diligence, so familiarize yourself with the target business and identify any potential red flags that, for example, might want to reduce the purchase price. And secondly, the drafting and negotiation of a sale and purchase agreement that ideally has as many warranties in it as possible that protect you. If you want to learn more about sale and purchase agreements, I've linked a video up here right now. Now, before we move on to discussing how to ensure that the deal proceeds smoothly and it's not delayed, make sure to subscribe to the channel because it will continue to give you practical, pragmatic, and to the point legal information and templates. On the topic of templates, I've linked in the description below a template heads of terms that you can download for free and use if you wish. Also, if you're in the market for a corporate solicitor to help you with your business acquisition, make sure to reach out via the website linked in the description below. These are the heads of terms. You should see them highlighted right now. And this is just a template, and I've tried to make it as easy as possible for you guys to use by mainly including this table that you will need to complete with your relevant information. So the way it works is that there are terms that are defined and used in the body of the heads of terms themselves. So for example, very easy example is dear sellers, and then we have the definition of seller, and you'll want to include it right here. Then to give you an outline of the structure of these heads of terms, again, this is the definition table that you will need to complete. Then we have the main body of the heads of terms that you'll want to review, but ideally you might not have to amend as much. Then scrolling down, here you'll want to include your signature as the buyer. Then in the Schedule 1, we have the exclusivity agreement that grants you exclusivity for a period of time. And then lastly, we have the section where the seller signs if they agree. Amazing. So the third main thing that you want to include in your heads of terms are a timeline of events. Now, very often you see in heads of terms, the parties agree to an ideal completion date. So when the business is going to be bought. But there are many steps that need to be taken before we get to the position where the business can actually be bought, also known as exchange and completion. And what I like to do is outline the main steps, the main milestones that need to be taken before we get to that point, and set due dates for each of them. For example, once the heads of terms have been signed, the next milestone will be for the buyer to send to the seller a due diligence questionnaire. Also, I will link above a video that talks about the due diligence questionnaire. Second main milestone is for the seller to upload all the documents that the buyer has requested to inspect to a virtual data room. The third milestone is for the buyer to complete their due diligence. The fourth is for the buyer to share the sale and purchase agreement with the seller to start the negotiations. Fifth, the sale and purchase agreement is agreed to in principle. And then finally, you can actually exchange and complete on the deal. Now, before you send off the heads of terms to the seller, make sure to know what kind of questions you want to ask the seller during the due diligence procedure. And for that, I've created a video and it's right here. You can click on it right now and learn about the things that you'll want to ask the seller in a business acquisition. Thanks for watching.